welcome to Mini Lotr. This is Lemmy. Today I'm gonna show you how I paint a blackroot vale archers. Never mind the sword he is wielding, he is an archer. And as an extra bonus today at the end of the video, I will show you how I made an extra Duinhir. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I speak Dutch, and in Dutch you would say Duinhir. By the end of today's video I will show you how to make your own Duinhir instead of buying him together with two other people from the fiefdom army, just to save money. Because if you don't need the other two commanders from the fiefdoms, you're gonna spend 30 plus euros, I think it is, just to have one model, and two models that come with it are useless. So stay tuned. Alright. Today we begin with the Chaos Black spray paint. That's our base coat. First off, I begin with mechanicus standard grey on his cloak and blot on the front of his face. And give the good layer, make sure there is no black showing through. After which I use dawnstone. In this video I show you how that I dry brush it. In the end, this is a test model by the way. In the end I just started with edge highlighting, but I thinned down the dawnstone with the lahmian medium, about a 1:1 ratio. And if you do it like that, the dawnstone will dry lighter and less noticeable. It will be a smoother end result, if you ask me. I don't really know how to put it in words. And after you've dry brushed or highlighted your cloak with dawnstone, I started with white scar. I'm gonna say it right now, if you're doing this at home, leave it until the end. Because you're gonna touch up that white scar like 10 times with all the other layers we're gonna put on the model, so yeah. That was a mistake I learned from. Next is XV88. Once again, this is this model. By the end of it, XV88 looked good, but I didn't want to include XV88 in this paint job because it's just another brown. And I'm gonna use a lot of browns already. I just wanted to save time, but if you're gonna use XV88, use it on his leather armor, specifically on his torso. The white scar, by the way, is for the tunic. Don't know if I said it. So XV88 on the armor. After which I started painting the quiver where the arrows are held and the straps for the quiver in gorthor brown, just to make them stand out a little bit more against all the other brown colors. Yeah, gorthor brown just stands out nicely to all the other browns we're gonna use. Next up is mournfang brown. I use it on the boots, the trousers, everything else pretty much that's cloth or armor, even if you're not using the XV88. And don't worry, we're gonna do some things with it, making it look more different, making it look way nicer than just a mournfang brown coat everywhere. Once you've painted your mournfang brown and included the bow as well, you are painting ironbreaker next. Ironbreaker goes on the tips of the bow and his sword if he's wielding it. If not, it's just gonna be the tips of the bow. And to finish the sword, parts you didn't paint ironbreaker, we're gonna paint hashut copper. Something I apparently pronounced wrong for a while now. I always thought it was hashut copper, but it's hashut copper apparently. I don't know how I didn't notice that one before. I've used it in previous videos, I've typed it down in the comments where I list all the paints I use. Yep, weird. Hashut copper we also use on the tip of his scabbard if it's showing. Once that's done, we're gonna start with flayed on flesh. Once again, flayed on flesh. You could do it before you start with the coat, but then you're gonna just dry brush all over it with dawnstone. If you're dry brushing, it's just easier, in my opinion, to do it about now. Didn't do it in this video, but I've started thinning it down as well, 1:1 with lahmian medium, just to get a more even spread. Because for some reason I just keep getting paint strokes if I use flayed on flesh, so yeah, I've started thinning things down. Something I used to be not a great fan of, but I can see the benefits now. So flayed on flesh for the hands and face. After which we use khorne rat for the fletching, because it's a fiefdom warrior. And fiefdoms are aligned with gorthor. Gorthor gets red arrows for obvious reasons, so khorne rat is the best paint to use for the fletching on the arrows, in my humble opinion. Now we're gonna tackle all that mournfang brown we painted and use snakebite leather, a contrast paint, on his torso and shoulders where you painted mournfang brown. Also his forearms where he has some, I don't know how you call it, but on his forearm as well, if he has some armor there. If you want to change things up, you can also use it for the pants, or if you really want to change things up, you can use XV88 for the pants, give them some variety. Next contrast paint is contrast wyldwood, and I just use it for the boots. If you're gonna paint them having gloves, I use it for gloves as well. It's a nice dark brown. And what the mournfang brown layer does beneath the contrast paint is in the highlights it will show more, and it will just look like you have put way more work into your model than you have actually done. Now that's all done, we can use the last contrast paint. In this video I use apothecary white, 1 part contrast paint, 3 parts lahmian medium. But in my opinion the detail on the tunics, where we painted it white, it doesn't have a lot of detail. And it just doesn't show that well, the end result doesn't look quite right. I try to use the technique I got from the video JMac did. If you don't know him, I'm gonna link his channel down below in the comments, and pretty much wherever I can link him. He is an amazing creator and I've learned a lot from him. But in his video he shows you have to start with white base coat and grey, and just light base coats are not my thing. I'm not advanced enough a painter to start with light base coats without it looking like shit, because I forgot to paint some spots here and there. If you start with chaos black, it will hide a lot of the mistakes you make, and I make a lot of them, as you may or may not have noticed. So if you're comfortable using a light base color for your paint job, you can check JMac's video out, it will be linked somewhere. And his results are great, but the way I did it, it didn't look great. Wasn't a big fan of it, so in the end for the other models I just used white scar with nothing else. And it looks good as well. Not as great as it could be. But yeah, that's my rant over. Next up, shade paints. Agrax earthshade for everything we painted brown, like gorthor brown, mournfang brown. But it's not a contrast paint, just to give it a little bit more variety, like the pants, just to give it some depth, and it will look absolutely amazing. Shade paints are just talent in a bottle. Many people have said it and I'm gonna say it. Shade paints are awesome. Now for the face and hands we use the reikland fleshshade. And once again, if you hate yourself, you can start highlighting it with the flayed on flesh we used, but then down with lahmian medium. After the reikland fleshshade has dried, just to give it a little bit more detail, make it stand out a little bit more. But after already having to highlight the cloaks, I don't feel like wasting more time on the face. It will look way better. But I have a lot of them to paint, so I don't really want to bother with it. Maybe once they're all painted I can start taking the commanders, the heroes, and give them a little special treatment, but for normal warrior I wouldn't do it unless you have time to waste, you hate yourself and want a better looking army. Fuck, that's brutal. And now for the fun part, where I show you how I made my personalized Duinhir by just taking the command pack from the blackroot vale, taking the hornblower with his separate arm holding the horn. I cut away the lower arm and glued the shoulder part to the hornblower, who is gonna be the Duinhir. After which I searched for an appropriate ranger model, one that I like the pose of and the arm of, and I thought it would look good. And I cut away the lower part of his arm and super glued it to the new Duinhir model. Once that's dry and it looks decent, you can use some green stuff to fill in the gaps, make it look a little bit better. And once you've done the green stuff with the Duinhir model, you can rescue the ranger we just messed up by slicing his arm off, by gluing what is left of the original hornblower's arm back to the ranger's arm. I wasn't intending to doing this, I was fully prepared to just give up that ranger, but in the end I thought, why not give it a try, and it surprisingly doesn't look that bad. I didn't even use green stuff, I just super glued it into place. I was like, let's give it a try. And in the end I'm actually kind of happy with how he turned out as well. So now I have a Duinhir that looks separate from the rest of the army, stands out a little bit, and isn't blowing a horn. Sadly the model's face looks like he's blowing something. So he has a little bit of a weird face, but in the end it's okay. And we still have a hornblower who is simultaneously fighting someone, which is way more dynamic and cool than just a guy blowing a horn. So you can paint him up in the painting scheme I just explained. And now I'm gonna show you some pictures of how the blackroot vale army is doing so far, what I have painted so far. And I personally think they look awesome, different than the rangers I've already painted. And the rangers I've painted, instead of using white scar, use XV88, and pretty much do the exact same as I've mentioned before, except the cloaks I've painted them with Dark Angel's green. Don't think that's the official color anymore, I think that's how it was called like 15 years ago. But just the dark green, and I dry brushed it with eshin grey, just any dark grey, just to make the cloaks a little bit more different for my normal rangers, so they would stand out okay against my blackroot vale army. So this is how I paint a blackroot vale archer and made a customized Duinhir. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give a like, subscribe, comment what you want to see next, share with a friend. And don't forget to check out JMac. He makes amazing videos. I learned a lot from him and he's all in all a great guy. And he has way more subscribers, so I don't know why I'm plugging him so hard. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed. See you in the next one. Bye.